Might as well just get started with. Almost done. So, all right. The last thing we're going to go over tonight is going to be magnetic starters. So, magnetic starters, they basically take the last two things we've talked about tonight, overload devices and contactors, put them in a room together, they make a baby, you get a magnetic starter or a motor start. This is basically, it is a massive contactor that's going to have overload components built into it. I mean, it's about, residentially at least, when I've seen motor starters, they're about 3 to 4 times the size of a contactor. So they're very large components. Typically, they're going to be in their own disconnect box, so they won't just be directly connected in with the unit or anything like that, or in a distribution panel or an access panel for technicians. But because they're larger, these are ones where, yes, you can replace parts on these easily. And by making it where you've got parts that you can replace, it makes it so that, operationally over time, it can cost you a little bit less. But typically going to be used on much larger equipment is when you're going to need this, because we use contactors, relays, and overloads not because we love our motors and we care about them and we want to make sure they're safe and warm at home. No, because they're expensive, and they're a pain in the butt to replace. So let's not do that, So we try to make it easier for ourselves. And the easiest way to do that is to control and make sure that we've got, everything protected as best as possible. So with larger equipment, we're going to use larger controls and larger protective equipment. A magnetic starter is one of the ways we're going to do that. Now, tonight, at the end of this video and everything like that, I will be sending out another video with this. It's about 5 minutes, I think, and that's about it. It just goes over, shows you guys some magnetic and motor starters, and shows you the basics of, what it looks like, because these slides don't have any pictures of them. And that way you can get a little bit more of a visual, look for them and everything. It doesn't really go into like troubleshooting them or anything like that, because troubleshooting them is just like our contactors and our overloads. We're going to look and say, okay, power's coming in, is power going out the other side, and where along this do we have where it stops? Or we find that power stopping to flow through the system, that's what we're going to replace or repair, or just look at and make sure, well, maybe it's trying to stop it for good reason. For an overload, it might be because there's too much amperage or there's too high of temperature. So magnetic starters, again, they're really just going to be, used for larger equipment to really give it that extra level of protection. And putting together a contactor and a motor and a contactor and an overload is a really good idea, and it just makes sense. There we go. So we've got a couple different styles of them as far as what the material they'll be using to act as an overload device. Bimetal is a common one because bimetal is 2 metals, bimetal. And all it is got 2 metals that are dissimilar, so usually brass and steel. And when those two are fused together, one right next to the other, is in a strip or in a disc or anything like that, heat will warp them very quickly. It'll change the shape of that. And if we have power come in and power going out, but that shape warps and then disconnects or connects our wires because of temperature, it can be a very, very good way to protect our system from an overload with these magnetic starters. Thermal relay, again, operating just on heat. That's going to be more sensitive to an actual temperature that it'll be rated for. And that's what those ones will be looking for, as opposed to a bimetal is more or less looking for a general area of heat. Thermal relays are a little more precise on the degree and temperature, typically. So, and then molten alloy relays, again, that's another style that you're going to see used from time to time. Depends on manufacturer and everything, but for larger units, yes. It's got a fusible link of material, basically allowing power to go through that system unless it draws either too high of amperage or too high of temperature, and then it's going to disconnect and be overloaded. So troubleshooting, again, like I said, contactor, the magnetic starter, they're pretty similar. We're just adding an overload to a contactor. That's it. So we're going to look at still our contactors. We're going to look at our contacts. We're going to look at our coils. We're going to look at our mechanical linkage. The only difference is now we've got to look at overloads as well. So that's the one extra thing we've got to check on this. Otherwise, we check it just the same exact way we would check a contactor. So it's not that it's more complicated or anything like that. It's just that it's got a few more parts to it, so it takes a little more time to look at it. All right. Push button stations, these are old school. Now, they're not gone away with, but they are something of the past for sure. This is your Homer Simpson is what I like to think about always. When I think about a push button station, I think of, you know, sitting in front of that big control panel and you've got all these buttons and they've got to be pressed in the correct order and they got to be correct in the rest, pressed in the correct timing and everything like that. So making sure that it's timed correctly, making sure that it's going on in the correct order. So order of operation and timing is a factor for these. Nowadays, most systems are switched completely to DDC, direct digital controls, where it's control boards and computers and things like that, or a combination of DDC with push button stations. It's very rare that you will find a system that is only push button nowadays, unless you're talking about a non-HVAC thing like this button right here. You've probably seen something like this, forward, reverse, stop, except it might have been up, down, stop for a motor for a garage door. All right, same exact thing. It's got it where it's going to have, you know, you have an operation where you can like push the button, and that's a manual switch. That's all it is. As opposed to having to flip a switch on the wall, this is just a push to make the connection. You make another push, and it disconnects the other one and connects a new one. That's literally all we're doing with that. So the push button stations, you had a couple of different styles of controls typically with them back in the day. It was you had your push buttons. You also had dials. So you would have where you could turn and control on and off with basically it would be a 90-degree just flip the switch, and that would be just take a 90-degree rotation, and that would turn on or off your different components. Nowadays, if you see a push button station, it's very much restricted to going to be something in the industrial landscape of things. So industrial process refrigeration, whether you're working for the Ready Ice factory and making thousands of pounds of ice every day, or you're working for a medical testing facility that's got tissue samples that need to be frozen on a regular basis. Those also need to have it where it's going to be this constant control of temperatures and processes. We need to have it where we can manually override things from time to time because some of those things are unpredictable, you know, especially with things like tissue samples where it might come in, there might be some irregularities between samples, or with ice making where if, you know, the refrigerant's not pumping correctly, or there's a slowdown in airflow, or a big shift in temperature outside of the building. Let's say, you know, the day previously goes from 70, the next day goes up to 90. Not like that ever happens here in Virginia. So that's something that where you're going to need those manual controls. They can become an advantage because now you can make adjustments as needed and quickly. You can just shut down the system, shut it down, just nope, no questions asked, just shut it down. And being able to do that is a really nice thing because nowadays, if you have that at if you go to a residential home, The only way to quickly shut down a system is you got to run over, find the breaker, hope that it's the right one, and then flip it off. And that's not even the right way to do it, because a breaker panel and a breaker should not be operated like a switch. So having a switch that's actually meant to do that, that's why we want to have these kinds of controls. They're very easy to diagnose. It's power in, power out. That's it. You test them like a switch. You check for continuity if the power is off. You check for electricity and voltage if the power is on. And you're just operating it and making sure that it's actually doing its job. So in conclusion for tonight and everything, contactors, again, they're going to be opening and closing paths of electricity for our circuit, for our loads. Relay is going to do the same thing, but remember, contactor is going to handle a much higher load than a relay ever could. Contactors always handle our bigger loads compared to relays. Our overloads are going to be there to protect our devices, and then the magnetic starter is the contactor and the overload got together in the room, made a baby. So that's pretty much all I've got for this evening. I'm going to send out, like I said, another video to go over magnetic starters with everyone. But at this point in time, if y'all have any questions, if you've got anything about the class or what we just covered that you want to go back over, please let me know. Contactors, relays, loads, magnetic starters. Look at that. So I'm just going to go ahead and upload all these slides for y'all. Make sure they're on Canvas. Oh, okay. Well, they're already on there, unless these are the old ones, which I bet you they are.
we have homework?
I hold on. Should have sent that out the other week. If not, I'll make sure to send that out again. It should just be questions out of the electricity textbook and the lab book is all it's going to be. So I'll send that out in an email once. I'll probably do that right now once I'm finished with my putting all the slides onto Canvas. That's what I'm trying to do right now because I just realized that all the slides were from the old textbook, which was I don't know how many months ago, 2 or 3.
Okay.
Because they just changed it on us like 2 or 3 times ago. Maybe this is the 3rd time, I think, since we used the new one. Stop calling it the new textbook. But yeah, I'll send that info out to y'all so you have that.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it. Cool. So, Might be getting an email soon. Should be.
So the email you just sent out says review questions from 10, 11, 12, and 13. Do we supposed to just be doing 10 tonight?
No, well, yeah. So the actual file. Wrong folder. There. Yeah, you can do just it'll be due next week. Will be 10, 11, 12, and 13. So just between now and next Monday, have those 4 done.
Okay. All right. So the Wednesday class, what will we be going over? What chapter will we be going over? 11?
Yeah, probably chapters. I think it's chapters 11 and 12, if I'm remembering correctly. Let me double check my slides. No, we're on week 4. That's 2. This goes over. Oh my gosh, computer, good to be in this mode. Chapter 12 and chapter 13. So just 12 and 13 is what it goes over as far as the slides are concerned.
And all of the review questions?
Yeah, just all the review questions.
So 10 through 13.
Yeah, 10 through 13. Yep, that'd be perfect.
Due by next Monday.
Yep.
All right.
And you can either email me a picture of like your homework, or if you want to type it up and send me a Word document or whatever, that's fine. Whatever way works easiest for you. If you want to send it on Zoom or text it to me, I'm easy.
Okay, gotcha.
What are you thinking yourself? Well, since no one else is asking any questions, I am going to go ahead and call it for the night, and go ahead and start uploading the videos for from tonight and everything like that. That way they can all be online, and I'll send out that one for the motor starters or magnetic starters for y'all, so you can actually see what I was talking about. But yeah, that's all I got. Anybody got any other questions? All right, cool. I'll see y'all next week. Oh, Wednesday. Sorry. See you Wednesday.